If someone had told me a year ago that my wife was lying, I'd laugh. But tonight, my phone told me otherwise. But now, staring at my phone screen, watching her location not at her office like she claimed, I wasn't so sure anymore. It started small. Late nights at work, unexplained overtime, a sudden obsession with keeping her phone face down. I ignored it at first. Everyone gets busy, right? But then came the weird shifts in behavior. Shorter conversations, distant looks, vague excuses that didn't quite add up. Tonight was no different. She kissed me goodbye, grabbed her purse, and said she had another late night ahead. I nodded, told her to be safe. But something felt wrong. As soon as she walked out the door, I reached for my phone. We had a location sharing app, something we set up years ago for safety reasons. I never really checked it before. Until now. I tapped on her icon, expecting to see her at work. But there she was, across town, in a quiet suburban neighborhood, not at a restaurant, not at a coffee shop, a house, a private house, and she had been there for nearly an hour. I stared at the blinking dot, my pulse pounding. There had to be an explanation. A last-minute errand, a friend's place, a mistake, or maybe... It was exactly what it looked like. I grabbed my keys. I needed to know the truth. I gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. My heart pounded, each beat thumping against my ribs as I drove, eyes flicking between the road and the blinking dot on my phone screen. She was still there. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe this was nothing. Maybe I'd pull up to that house and find some perfectly innocent explanation. Maybe she had a friend I didn't know about. Maybe her car broke down and she needed help. But deep down, I knew better. The thought gnawed at me, clawing its way up my throat, making it hard to swallow. I replayed the past few weeks in my head, the missed calls, the hurried texts, the nights she'd come home late with a new excuse each time. I'd convinced myself it was just work stress, but now I wasn't so sure. I turned onto the street, my headlights washing over a row of quiet suburban houses. A typical neighborhood, nothing fancy, just modest single-story homes with neatly trimmed lawns and cars parked in driveways. My pulse hammered as I scanned each one, searching, dreading what I was about to find. And then I saw it. Her car. It sat in a driveway, perfectly parked, like it belonged there. I pulled over a few houses down, killing the engine, my breath uneven. The silence inside my car was deafening. She had lied to me. She had looked me in the eye, kissed me goodbye, and told me she was heading to work. But she wasn't at work. She was here. My mind raced, trying to piece together a logical explanation, but I couldn't find one. Who lived here? Why had she been here for over an hour? Why hadn't she mentioned this place before? I forced myself to think logically. If she was cheating, I needed proof. I couldn't just assume. I needed to be sure. My hands shook as I reached for my phone. I zoomed in on the location, checked the house number. Nothing looked familiar. I opened my contacts, hovering over her name. Should I call her? See if she lies to me again? I hesitated. Number. If she was inside with someone else, calling her would only warn her. She'd have time to cover her tracks, make up another excuse, slip out the back door while I sat outside like a fool. I needed to see it with my own eyes. A light flickered. My pulse jumped. I leaned forward and eyes locked on the window. A shadow moved, slow, relaxed, then another. My stomach twisted. She wasn't alone. I clenched my jaw so hard my teeth ached. My stomach twisted into a tight knot, rage bubbling beneath my skin. Who was it? A coworker? Someone from the gym? A random fling, or worse? Someone I knew? I forced a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I couldn't just barge in, fists swinging. That wasn't me. But I wasn't going to sit in my car all night either. I scanned the house. There was a side yard, a wooden fence leading toward the backyard. If I wanted answers, I had to get closer. I shoved my phone in my pocket, heart hammering as I stepped out of the car. The night air was cold against my skin, but I barely felt it. My footsteps were light against the pavement as I moved toward the house, adrenaline drowning out everything else. I stopped near the fence, peering over it. A back porch light was on, casting a dim glow across a small patio. There was a sliding glass door, the blinds partially drawn. I swallowed hard, my throat dry as sandpaper. I could hear muffled voices inside. A laugh. Her laugh. Something inside me cracked. I had heard that laugh 1,000 times before, in our kitchen, in our bed, in the moments I thought belonged only to us. And now Now she was giving it to someone else. I gritted my teeth, my fingers curling into fist. I wasn't ready for this. I wasn't ready to face whatever was on the other side of that door. But I had come this far. There was no turning back now. Taking a deep breath, I moved toward the window. I had to know the truth. I took a slow, steady breath, my fingers tightening around my phone as I moved toward the front door. This wasn't about catching them anymore. I had done that. This was about what happened next. Storming in, fists flying, wasn't my style. No, that was too easy, too predictable. Instead, I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. I tapped on my messages, pulled up her contact, and typed. Me, having fun at work. I hit send. Through the window, I watched her phone light up on the coffee table. She glanced at it, then went back to her conversation. No hesitation, no guilt, no rush to reply. I clenched my jaw. She wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. I needed to make my next move, something that would shatter their little fantasy. I rang the doorbell. A long silence. Then hurried whispers. The creak of the floor. I waited. Finally, the door cracked open. She stood there, her face slightly flushed, her hair loosely draped over her shoulders like she had just made herself comfortable. She tried to keep her expression neutral, but her widened eyes and slightly parted lips betrayed her. She was panicking. She opened the door, and for a split second I saw it. Shock. Then like a switch, her face smoothed into something neutral. Oh, hey, babe. Too casual, too forced. What are you doing here? I tilted my head slightly, scanning her face. She was wearing a silk blouse I hadn't seen before. Her makeup was fresh, not the worn-out look of someone pulling a late shift. Funny, I said, slipping my phone out of my pocket and holding it up. The map with her live location was still open. Because according to this, you're supposed to be at work. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Busted. Before she could scramble for an excuse, I stepped forward slightly, looking past her into the house, and then I saw him. Standing just behind her, a man I recognized immediately. Not a friend, not a stranger. Her co-worker. The one she always talked about in passing. The one she claimed was just a work friend. The one she had once sworn was annoying, uninteresting, and definitely not her type. Yet here he was. He stood near the couch, his posture stiff, his face pale. He had the look of a man who knew he was caught and was scrambling for an exit. I exhaled slowly, my stomach twisting. It wasn't just about the betrayal anymore, it was the fact that she had lied so easily, so naturally for so long. I turned back to her. So this is what working late looks like? She swallowed hard. Don't, I cut her off. Don't insult me by making something up. She hesitated, her lips parting like she wanted to say something, but she had nothing. Good. I stepped inside, my presence forcing them both backward. The living room smelled like expensive wine and a faint trace of cologne that wasn't mine. On the coffee table sat an open bottle, 2 glasses half full. They had been here long enough to settle in. I turned to face him. You want to say something? My voice was low, controlled, the kind of calm that came before a storm. He opened his mouth, hesitated, then shook his head. Coward. I let out a slow breath, nodding slightly as I looked between the two of them. This was what betrayal looked like. Not some dramatic movie moment, not a screaming match. It was a quiet, heavy weight settling into my chest as the people I trusted the most stood before me, caught, guilty, and still not brave enough to own up to it. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone again. Her expression changed. What are you doing? I smirked. Oh, nothing much, just sending a message. Her phone buzzed on the table. So did his. At the same time. She swallowed hard before grabbing hers. And when she read the message, her breath hitched. Me, to everyone who knows us, family, friends, co-workers, just wanted to share a little update about my marriage. Turns out my wife and her work friend have been sneaking around behind my back. Thought you should all know. Her face turned pale. You didn't. I turned my screen to her, letting her see the notification. Message delivered to 36 contacts. A small, broken noise escaped her lips. She covered her mouth with her hand, her fingers trembling. Oh my God. He snatched his phone, his face contorting with anger. Are you insane? Me? I let out a humorless chuckle. I'm not the one who just threw away everything for a cheap bottle of wine and a few nights of sneaking around. He stepped forward, his fists clenching. You can't just... can't what? I cut him off, stepping closer. Expose you for what you really are? A liar? A snake? Because I assure you I absolutely can. He looked like he wanted to swing. For a second I almost wanted him to. But then his phone buzzed again. His boss's name flashed across the screen. Yeah, that's right. I had called HR before I even got here. His face dropped, the color draining. You should pick that up, I said, voice laced with mock sympathy. Might want to start job hunting. He looked between me and my wife, realization setting in that this wasn't just an affair getting exposed. This was the implosion of his entire life. She turned to me, her voice shaking. Can we talk about this? No. She blinked rapidly, her hands shaking. Please, No, I repeated, stepping back toward the door. We're done. She reached out, her fingers brushing against my arm, desperate. But I yanked my arm away like her touch burned. Don't. And with that, I walked out, leaving them in the wreckage they created. I walked away from that house with my head held high, but inside, everything felt off. Like I had won the battle, but lost something I didn't even know I was still holding on to. I slid into my car, gripping the steering wheel, staring at nothing in particular. The weight of the night pressed down on me. The betrayal, the lies, the realization that the life I thought I had was nothing more than a carefully constructed illusion. My phone buzzed. Her. Please, let's talk. I swear it's not what you think. I exhaled slowly. Not what I think? I had watched it unfold with my own eyes, heard the panic in her voice when she realized she was caught, seen the way her so-called co-worker stiffened like a man who knew he had just lost everything. Another buzz. Her co-worker. You need to stop. You're ruining people's lives. I let out a hollow laugh. Ruining lives? What did he think they had done to me? I tapped out a simple response. Me? You did that all by yourself. Then I put my phone down and drove. The next morning I woke up to chaos. My phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Calls, texts, voicemails, stacking up faster than I could clear them. I scrolled them through the messages, friends, family, even people I hadn't spoken to in months. Some offering sympathy, some demanding details, some just sending screenshots. Screenshots of my message outing her and her coworker. I clicked on one from a mutual friend. Friend. Bro. It's all over work. People are talking about it nonstop. I clicked on another message from one of her coworkers. Coworker. Dude, HR is involved. He might lose his job over this. A bitter feeling curled in my chest. I had wanted revenge. I had wanted them to feel what I felt. But standing in my kitchen, phone in hand, reading those messages, I didn't feel satisfied. Not really. I just felt empty. Another message popped up. Her mom. I raised you better than this. Don't bother coming here. I stared at the words, something deep inside me twisting. Even her own mother had turned against her. I should have felt victorious, but all I felt was the dull ache of knowing this was real. A life I spent years building? Gone. A person I trusted? Gone. And for what? Some cheap thrill? Some fleeting excitement she thought was worth more than what we had? My phone rang. Her name flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. A second later, the notification popped up. I pressed play. Her voice was unsteady. Please, just talk to me. I made a mistake, okay? But we can fix this. You don't have to do this. Fix this. I swallowed hard, gripping the phone. I could hear the desperation, the cracks in her voice. Maybe if this had happened a year ago, maybe if I had never seen the truth with my own eyes, I would have believed her. But there was nothing left to fix. I deleted the voicemail. That afternoon, a text from an unknown number popped up. Unknown. Hey, it's Mark from HR. We need to talk about what happened today. I called him back. Hey, Mark. My voice was even, but I already knew where this was going. He exhaled. Look, I won't beat around the bush. The situation with your wife and her coworker, it's caused a huge mess. HR has been dealing with it all day. I leaned against the counter. And? We've received multiple complaints from employees about their behavior before this even came out, Mark admitted, and given the evidence, we're terminating him. I nodded to myself. Tough break. Mark hesitated. We're still reviewing your wife's situation, but I won't lie. Things don't look good for her. Between the company policy and the public nature of all this, he didn't have to finish. I already knew what he meant. She wasn't just losing me. She was losing everything. Her reputation, her career, the stability she thought she could fall back on. And yet, as I hung up the phone, I didn't feel the relief I thought I would. I felt tired. I sat in my living room, staring at nothing, the silence louder than it had ever been before. This was my life now, without her. And even though I knew this was the right thing, even though I knew there was no saving us, there was still this hollow space inside me that hadn't quite caught up to reality. I had spent years with her, built a home, made plans, and now it was all ashes. I let out a slow breath and glanced at my phone. The divorce papers were already drafted. I just had to sign. My fingers hovered over the screen. This was it. The final step. I closed my eyes for a moment, not out of hesitation, not because I wanted her back, but because I was mourning something that had died long before I ever realized it. Then with steady hands I clicked the button, filed, and that was that. I thought signing the divorce papers would feel like an ending. Like the moment the ink dried, everything would finally settle, and I'd walk away without looking back. But closure doesn't come wrapped in legal documents. It comes in waves. Some days I felt fine, relieved even. Other days I wake up in an empty bed, and for a split second my brain would forget. I'd reach for the other side, expecting warmth, only to find nothing but cold sheets. That was the hardest part. Not the anger, not the betrayal, but the silence. The absence of the person I had built my life around. I didn't miss her. Not really. I missed the idea of her, the version of her that had existed in my mind, before the lies, before the deception, the version of her that I thought would be by my side forever. But she was gone, and maybe she had never really been there to begin with. The fallout had been brutal. Her affair wasn't just scandalous, it was public. After she got fired, I heard through mutual friends that she tried to save face, claiming it wasn't that serious, that I had overreacted, but people weren't buying it. The damage had been done. Her coworker? He never recovered either. Without his job, his reputation tanked, and I heard his fiancée left him the second she found out. There was something poetic about it, how their little secret, the thing they thought would stay hidden forever, had cost them everything. At one point, I thought about reaching out. Not to rekindle anything, just to hear her admit it, to hear her say, I screwed up. But then I realized it didn't matter. Knowing wouldn't change anything. It wouldn't undo the months of deceit. It wouldn't bring back the man I was before I had to track my own wife's location just to find out the truth. One evening, months later, I found myself sitting alone at a bar, watching the ice melt in my drink. A woman slid onto the stool next to me. She was beautiful, but not in a way that demanded attention. There was something quiet about her, something real. We exchanged a few words, a few laughs. At some point she tilted her head and asked, So, you married? I could have lied. I could have said not anymore and left it at that. But instead I gave her the truth. I was, I said. She cheated. She blinked, clearly not expecting the honesty. Damn, she muttered. That sucks. I laughed, shaking my head. Yeah, it does. She paused, stirring the olives in her martini. You still love her? I thought about that for a second. Did I? I used to. I had loved her deeply, fiercely. But love doesn't exist in the past tense. If you still love someone, it's present, it's there, pulsing in your chest. And what I felt now wasn't love. It was just memory. No, I said finally. I don't. She studied me for a moment, then smiled. Good. And just like that, for the first time in a long time, I felt something shift inside me. Not closure, not yet, but something close. Maybe, just maybe, I was finally moving on. Betrayal doesn't just break your heart. It rewrites you. It makes you question everything. Your past, your choices, your own judgment. But the truth? The person who cheats is the one who lost something, and not you. The truth is, love makes us blind. We ignore the red flags. We believe in second chances. We convince ourselves that the person we love would never be capable of hurting us like that. But they are. And sometimes they do. I learned that trust isn't about how much you love someone. It's about how much they respect you, because love without respect, it's just an illusion. I also learned that revenge isn't always satisfying. Exposing them, watching their world fall apart, it didn't fix what was broken inside me. It didn't erase the nights I spent lying awake, wondering how long they had been laughing behind my back. What did help? Letting go. The moment I stopped needing closure, the moment I stopped looking for an apology that would never come, that's when I truly won. They destroyed our marriage. They lost everything. But me? I walked away with my dignity, my freedom, my future. And now, I know better. I know that if someone truly loves you, they won't put you in a position where you have to question them. They won't make you feel like a fool for believing in them. So here's the real question. If you found out your partner was cheating, would you take them back? Or would you burn it all down and never look back?